I'm Donna from Riverside Beads, and today I'm going to show you how to use different findings to put on the end of assorted stringing materials to finish them off. So let's get started with the tools and materials you need to do this. So the first one I want to show you is Tigertail. Tigertail is a flexible beading wire. So this one is 7 strands of fine wire and it's coated in nylon, which gives it that flexibility. It's a really good material for stringing general beads onto, and this is how you would add your fastenings onto this. So this is a culotte fastening. I've popped it onto a piece of black card here, although I've got my bead mat and typically I would work from that. I just thought it was easier for you to see for the purpose of the video. So I'm also going to pick it up with my pliers just so you can see. So a culotte fastening has a domed area either side of it. It has a hole underneath there where the cord goes through, and then I'm holding with the pliers, I'm holding the loop. So through that loop you pop the jump rings in a moment. So what we do is we open that up a little if you need to, but it's only attached by a very fine joint in the centre there, so don't put too much strain on it. You pop your Tigertail through that hole in the bottom, like so. That sort of drops out the way. So if you had your beads on there, you'd be able to drop that down onto your beads. Then we pick up the crimp bead. So again, if it was on a bead mat, I would generally pick it straight up from the mat. I think we'll be able to do that. There we go. Just give it a bit of help with the pliers. I'm going to take your flat nose pliers and you crimp that crimp bead with those fairly close to that end. So squashing it with the flat nose pliers. I find that if you go higher up the pliers here, you get a much better grip on that flat nose, on the flat nose pliers for doing your crimp bead without having to squeeze much harder. So that's now nice and secure. It's worth checking that. Make sure it doesn't fall off because that's all that will be holding your clamshell in place. So I'm popping that up over the crimp bead. Now this is really important. You don't push it all the way up so it's dropping on to the crimp bead fully. What we're looking to do is that crimp bead there, we're looking to sit that inside the dome of the culotte fastening. So we're popping it there so we can see where it goes, and gently squash it first with your fingers so that we've put that so it goes inside there. So it's now inside the domed area, and then I gently squash it with the pliers. Now that is purely to just close it. You're not squashing the loop, the domed area out of that. So what I'm going to do is just take my pliers and squeeze it just from a couple of different directions, which will just nip and tuck that together for you. So if we look now, it's nicely closed at the edges, domed in the centre, and that crimp bead is very slightly loose. It's got a little bit of movement. If we were to do it too close to this end here, it could crack. So as we squash it over, it can crack over the joint of the culotte there. Okay, so that's your clamshell, culotte or clamshell they're referred to as. So that's your clamshell added. So this would be a nice neat fastening on the end if we had our beads onto here. We would then take a jump ring. Just pop that on there. 2 pairs of flat nose pliers now. Much easier to work from a bead mat. This just helps you see it, but in terms of you doing it, it's easier to work from a bead mat. 2 pairs of flat nose pliers. Open that up. Hook that on there. So that's now on. If you were adding a clasp, you could also pop that on while that's open. And then hold it and close that back together again. If you open it very carefully, one way and one the other, you should be able to close it that same way. But just take care if it's not, give it a little wiggle and push it together just to get that joint closed. And you do sort of hear a little click if you listen. Did you get that? As the 2 bits of metal are coming together. You don't need to get the click, but it's it just gives you an indication that you've got that closed how you want it to be. So that's your jump ring added. So that's our end of our Tigertail, culotte fastening with a crimp inside it, jump ring, and then our fastening of choice. This is a lobster clasp. This is a calotte fastening or clamshell onto cord, so onto soft cord rather than your Tigertail. So this is a 0.6 macrame cord, which is a great cord for adding beads onto, or just having as a basic strung necklace. Now the key to preparing this cord is cutting it at an angle with a nice sharp pair of scissors, giving it a nice cut there, and then painting clear nail varnish, which I have already done on here, so you get a really nice fine tip as a bit of a point. Now that's how I get any beads on that I'm having difficulty with. I prepare the ends, so that's like a little needle now that will go through, but it's also really useful if you can't get it through your clamshell fastening. So I'm going to take the clamshell. Now clamshells have the domed area and they have the 2 loops on the edge there. So we've got the domed area there. Got the hole through the centre of the 2 domed areas, which is where we need to push the cord through, in that hole there. And then we've got the loop that I'm holding with the pliers. So this cord needs to go through that hole there. So because I've prepared it with the nail varnish, that's a nice sharp area or a stiffened area to go through. So that's now gone through the end of that clamshell. That's the first thing I'm looking to do. And then what we're looking to do, this is just tying a knot and having it in the clamshell. So this is really nice for soft cords if you wish to do this. So what you can do is just run your fingers over that and it will soften the nail varnish a little if you don't need it. So we want to tie the knot now. So if I take this so you can see it on here, I'm tying a knot. And I need to get that fairly close to the end of the cord. So you could use some round nose pliers and roll that up the cord, or you could just cut that surplus bit off depending on what you fancied doing. So I'll probably stop there, and I pull that really nice and tight with the second one on top of it if you wish as well, if you feel it needs to be a little larger or more secure. And then I would add, just make sure that sits on top of there. So if that started to move away from the knot, I would just use my nails or my round nose pliers just to shiffle it so it goes on top of the knot there. Now if you can't pull it or it slipped like it just did there, hold some pliers and give it a good pull. And the pliers will help be your grip without you having to put extra effort into it. So what I would do normally is add my glue, leave that to dry and then cut it. But for the purpose of this, I will just cut it fairly close to the knot, and then that clamshell drops down, and this time we don't have to worry about it catching on the crimp bead, and that knot is going to fit inside the domed areas of the clamshell. So when I close that, I start closing it with my fingers. Just make sure that sits in there. If you need to, you could just poke it into place if it looks like it's not quite sitting in the dome. And then when we've got it roughly closed, we use our pliers just to squash that last bit in. So just to give it an extra little squeeze there. I just sort of do it from different angles. So I'm doing it slightly from that side, slightly from that side. And there we go, and then I'm squeezing those 2 bits together because on this particular clamshell it's got a loop either side, so we need them to join up to then add the fastening. So that's now, my knot is inside there, which is on a soft cord material, which allows you to then, that's nice, and I'm pulling on that and that's nice and secure. So then you would add your jump ring and your clasp of choice on there again. The next fastening I want to show you is a box closure to add onto suede or cord or leather, or this is a satin cord that we often use for kamihimo. So a box closure is a 3-sided box that has a loop on one end, and that's how we fasten it onto with a jump ring onto your clasp of choice. And then the box will fold one side over with the other side coming over on top of it. So here's what we're going to do. I've just, for the purpose of holding it and keeping my fingers out of the way, I just want to show you with suede. So you can glue that in if you need to, which will stop it falling out, but I am just managing to grip the tip of it there with my nail. So don't forget that loop needs to be facing the end of your project, but I've just managed to get enough there to hold on to it just to show you for this. And then I'm popping the flat nose pliers, these wider nose ones are brilliant for this job if you have those, and I'm popping it in that direction up onto your pliers, so that allows me to fold it over like so. So I'm popping it like that, and I'm folding. So I can't sort of go anymore at the minute. I can feel a resistance because I've caught hold of that other side of that box closure. So now, instead of that angle, I'm going to turn it more that way and flatten that on top of there. And these are a nice wide pair of pliers that will just grip that into place. So that's the first side down. So I've now got the other side to show. I'm going to turn it the other way just so you can see it carefully on the camera. And then again, I'm folding that again, starting at that direction, little bit tipping to the side until I start to feel it bend. And then that will squash on top of there. And it's about then giving it each time you fold one, just giving it an extra squeeze just to secure that in place. And do please check it, because if that comes off, then you need to have another go with that. So that is your box closure added onto the end of your cord. The final fastening will just be a glue-in fastening. So this is the same end cap, the bell closure that we use on Kamihimo. So this is a smaller version that you might not use on your Kamihimo as much, but these are really good for adding onto cord ends. So this is the satin cord again that we'd use for Kamihimo, but it's not been braided in. So for that, we would simply add some glue in there, so into the hole there. Just be careful not to overfill it, because you do find when you push the cord in, that will squidge out. And again, we would have the loop so it's ready to attach the jump ring and clasp of choice on. So our glue would be in there, and we would then just get the cord into the end cap, and that would be a glue-on fastening. So that would stay round. We wouldn't fold that or crush it or anything. So, but you just need to make sure that you get the right size for the end of your cord. Now this one's very slightly bigger than that cord, but with a little bit of extra glue, that'll pad that out. And then when I position it, I would just position it so it sits in the centre of the clasp, and then that would be ready to add your jump ring and clasp onto. I hope that's helped you with some of the fastening questions that we typically get over at Riverside Beads. We get people ask us how to add the different clasps onto all the different stringing materials. Now this covers probably the main spectrum of questions that we get. One of the other ones would be pearl knotting perhaps, and that would be a culotte fastening again, perhaps the same as you did with the soft cord, where you just put the knot inside of it. So most of these would cover a variety of questions and the variety of stringing materials that you would need. Thanks for watching.